The Black Sabbath lead singer Ozzy Osbourne has died.
Wrestling and entertainment star Hulk Hogan has died.
In 2020, Hollywood lost some of its brightest stars, but the world hardly noticed. A beloved TV legend lay undiscovered beside his wife's body for 9 days. A soap opera queen slipped on the stairs and never got back up. A former child star was found lifeless in her luxury apartment at just 39 years old. These weren't just deaths. They were stories of cover-ups, hidden family secrets, and tragedies the industry tried to quietly erase. What truly happened behind those closed doors will leave you stunned. Number 1. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne's story ended the way he lived it: loud, chaotic, and unforgettable. On July 22, 2025, the world woke to heartbreaking news. The 76-year-old Black Sabbath frontman, the Prince of Darkness himself, was gone. At his home in Buckinghamshire, England, his heart finally gave out. The report called it a massive heart attack, worsened by coronary artery disease and the Parkinson's that had shadowed him for years. Outside his home, the scene felt unreal. An air ambulance landed quietly in Chalfont, St. Giles, then lifted off and flew just 8 miles to Harefield Hospital. The helicopter sat there with engines still running for nearly an hour, as if waiting for a miracle that never arrived. What makes it even more poignant is that only 17 days earlier, Ozzy had given fans one last memory. On July 5th in Birmingham, the city where it all began, he reunited with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. The show was fittingly called Back to the Beginning. He could no longer stand. Parkinson's had taken that from him, but sitting on a black throne, he sang with everything he had left. His voice was weathered yet powerful. His eyes burned bright, and the crowd knew they were witnessing the closing act of a legend. Ozzy had been living with a rare genetic form of Parkinson's since 2003, though the world only learned about it in 2020. By his final year, he couldn't walk at all. Sharon described it simply and painfully. You think you're lifting your feet, but they don't move. The disease stole him piece by piece. Still, Ozzy refused to disappear quietly. Every show became a battle, and he fought to the end. But Ozzy's legacy was never just about 13 platinum albums or the nickname Prince of Darkness. It was about unforgettable chaos. In 1982, he shocked the world by biting the head off a bat. He hurled raw meat into crowds. He staggered through decades of addiction, cheating death time after time. And then, against all odds, he became a strangely lovable father on MTV's The Osbournes. The same man who once terrified parents ended up making them laugh. That contradiction, the wild man and the family man, the chaos and the comedy, the darkness and the light, is what made Ozzy Osbourne larger than life. His passing wasn't just the death of a rock star. It was the end of an era. Number 2. Gene Hackman.
The film, it was this kind of glorious sense of Hackmanness we'd be going to the cinema for.
Angry, rebellious, critical, a renegade.
Gene Hackman's last days unfolded like a tragic scene from one of his own movies. It was February 2025. The world wouldn't know what had happened until more than a week later. By then, the silence inside his Santa Fe home had already told the story. Hackman, a 2-time Academy Award winner, had lived a long and extraordinary life. He had built a career worth $40 million, played some of the grittiest roles ever seen on screen, and then quietly walked away from Hollywood in 2004 to write novels. But when the final curtain came, it came in the cruelest way imaginable. It began with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. At 65, she was still vibrant, still full of life, until she suddenly fell ill. At first, it looked like a stubborn flu. She searched online for answers, tried breathing exercises, and even scheduled a doctor's appointment for February 12th. But she never made it there. The truth was far more sinister. She had contracted hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a rare infection spread by rodent droppings somewhere inside their home. On February 11th, Betsy was gone. Hackman, trapped in the haze of advanced Alzheimer's, couldn't understand what had happened. His wife remained where she had fallen, and he stayed with her, unable to call for help, lost in the fog of his failing mind. Hours turned into days. His health, already fragile, began to collapse. On February 17th, the pacemaker in his chest recorded its last irregular beat. His heart gave out, weakened by disease and worsened by kidney failure. He died in the same home where Betsy lay, their silence now permanent. It wasn't until February 26th that maintenance workers came by. When no one answered their knocks, they peered through the windows and froze. Inside was a scene suspended in time. Hackman and Arakawa both gone, one of their 3 dogs dead, the other 2 barely holding on. The house itself seemed frozen in grief. At first, investigators treated it like a crime scene, but there was no foul play, only illness, age, and the unbearable loneliness of isolation. And that is how the world lost Gene Hackman. Not on a film set, not with a final bow, but quietly, in the shadows. One of Hollywood's most respected actors, a man who had spent his final decades avoiding the spotlight, slipped away in a way no one could script, and perhaps that was his final, haunting role. Number 3. Lonnie Anderson.
I loved every moment of WKRP in Cincinnati because it was like a first kiss.
Lonnie Anderson was never just a pretty face on television. She was a force of nature, a woman who could light up a room with her smile and silence it with a single sharp remark. On August 3, 2025, just 2 days before what would have been her 80th birthday, she passed away in Los Angeles from complications of a long illness. It brought an end to a career that spanned nearly 5 decades and left behind some of Hollywood's most unforgettable stories. Audiences first fell in love with her as Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati, a role she played from 1978 to 1982. As the glamorous receptionist, she always seemed to know more than everyone else in the room, and she knew it. Jennifer used her beauty like a weapon, but she also kept the chaotic radio station running smoothly. The role earned Anderson 2 Emmy nominations and 3 Golden Globe nominations, proof that she had shattered the dumb blonde stereotype and turned it upside down. Yet, as much as her acting made headlines, so did her personal life. Her marriage to Burt Reynolds in 1988 looked like a Hollywood fairy tale. They had met years earlier on the set of Stroker Ace in 1983, and for a while, they were the golden couple. But behind the glamour, cracks began to show. By the time their marriage ended in 1994, their divorce had turned into a $2 million battlefield. Reynolds accused her of burning through $45,000 in just 30 minutes on his platinum card. Anderson, in turn, accused him of far worse. In 1995, she said he had struck her a dozen times while under the influence. She described living in fear of his unpredictable moods and even hiring nannies to protect their adopted son, Quentin, during visits. The custody battle was vicious, with accusations of him throwing furniture, missing child support payments of $15,000 a month, and constant fights splashed across the tabloids. Even with the chaos, Anderson never stopped working. She portrayed screen sirens Jane Mansfield in 1980 and Thelma Todd in 1991, 2 tragic women whose lives ended too soon. Later, she became a passionate advocate for COPD awareness after losing both her parents to the disease. Many quietly wondered if her own illness was connected. In 1995, she bared it all in her autobiography, My Life in High Heels. She promised it would be warts and all. No sugarcoating, no hiding. For Lonnie, it wasn't just a memoir, it was her truth. Number 4. Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer's life often felt like it belonged on the silver screen. On April 1, 2025, at the age of 65, he passed away after an 11-year battle with throat cancer. It began in 2014, slowly stealing the very thing that had defined his career, his voice.
My voice improved, and some days are better than others, and it work.
The final blow came from pneumonia. a cruel and quiet end to a fight that had already left its mark on him forever. Kilmer had been one of Hollywood's most unpredictable talents, a chameleon able to disappear entirely into any role. In Oliver Stone's The Doors in 1991, he became Jim Morrison so completely that even the band members struggled to tell the difference. He didn't just memorize the lines. He immersed himself for months studying Morrison until it felt like the singer had returned to the world through him. Then came Tombstone in 1993, where he gave the unforgettable portrayal of Doc Holliday. Kilmer even learned a full minute of a Chopin nocturne for the part, and to perfect the death scene, he had the crew fill his bed with ice to make the agony feel real. When asked how the role affected him, he spoke not about himself, but about Holliday, as if the outlaw had truly lived inside him. Yet behind the brilliance, there was turmoil. Kilmer's reputation for being difficult became almost as famous as his acting. On the set of The Island of Dr. Moreau in 1996, his marriage was collapsing. His wife had handed him divorce papers just before filming. Frustration spilled onto the set. He mumbled lines, stirred tension, and pushed the director to the edge. John Frankenheimer eventually told the crew he disliked Kilmer, his work ethic, and had no desire to work with him again. Everything changed in 2014. The throat cancer diagnosis brought surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, and 2 tracheotomies that forever altered the way he spoke and breathed. He survived the cancer, but his body never fully recovered. His immune system weakened, leaving him vulnerable to illnesses, including the pneumonia that would ultimately claim him. Kilmer's final major appearance came in 2022, returning as Iceman in Top Gun: Maverick. His character, like Kilmer himself, was battling illness, a quiet reflection of reality and fiction intertwined. Watching him in that role felt like a farewell, understated, powerful, and deeply human. Number 5. Richard Chamberlain.
I started out life with very low self-esteem and stuff, and I thought, oh, if only I could get the world to love me, everything will be fine.
Richard Chamberlain's life quietly ended on March 29, 2025, in Waimanalo, Hawaii. He was just 2 days shy of his 91st birthday. At the peak of his fame, he received 12,000 fan letters every week. Yet behind the charming smile and steady gaze, there was a man who had spent decades hiding a truth he feared could destroy everything. Born George Richard Chamberlain on March 31, 1934, in Beverly Hills, he didn't grow up in the glittering mansions people imagined. His family lived on the other side of Wilshire Boulevard. His father struggled with severe alcoholism before later becoming a respected Alcoholics Anonymous speaker, traveling the world to help others. From a young age, Richard felt like an outsider, a feeling that would stay with him even after stepping into the spotlight. Everything changed in 1961 when Dr. Kildare hit the airwaves. Overnight, Chamberlain became America's heartthrob. But fame came with its own chains. He was gay in an era when that could ruin a career. Publicly, he attended premieres with beautiful actresses, but privately, it was a carefully crafted act, a mask that concealed his true life. The act worked brilliantly. Chamberlain became the undisputed king of television miniseries. In 1980, Shogun captivated audiences across the country. 3 years later, The Thornbirds became a cultural phenomenon, watched by 60% of American television viewers and earning 16 Emmy nominations. All the while, he kept his personal life locked away, known only to a few. It wasn't until 2003, at the age of 70, that Chamberlain revealed the truth. In his memoir, Shattered Love, he told the world what many in Hollywood had quietly known. He had lived decades in fear, hiding a 20-year relationship with producer Martin Rabbit. Richard Chamberlain's story was one of brilliance and restraint, a man who captured the hearts of millions on screen while quietly navigating the complexities of living authentically in a world that demanded silence. His life was a delicate dance between fame and secrecy, and his passing marked the end of an era in television history. Number 6. Leslie Charleson. Leslie Charleson was more than a soap opera actress. She was the heartbeat of daytime television. For 47 years, she walked the halls of General Hospital, breathing life into the fiery and complex Dr. Monica Quartermain.
You know, I think it started when my mother said, "Don't think about it."
But her story began far from Hollywood lights. Born on February 22, 1945 in Kansas City, Missouri, she took her first steps into television at 19 with NBC's A Flame in the Wind in 1964. Everything changed in 1977, the year she became Monica. That role would define her career. Over the decades, she appeared in more than 2,000 episodes and earned 4 Daytime Emmy nominations. Her acting wasn't just skilled, it was fearless. In a 2023 interview, she stunned fans by revealing that when a scene called for a slap, she didn't fake it. She delivered it for real. The moment the cameras rolled, all hesitation disappeared. That fearless edge made her chemistry with her on-screen husband, Alan Quartermain, unforgettable. Their marriage was chaos and passion entwined. They cheated, they fought, they even tried to kill each other, and viewers couldn't look away. Her final chapter came faster than anyone expected. On January 12, 2025, Leslie Charleson passed away. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner explained that her death was the result of long-term effects from blunt head trauma, injuries caused by a series of severe falls that had left her reliant on a walker. She had been battling normal pressure hydrocephalus, a dangerous buildup of fluid in the brain, along with atrial fibrillation, arthritis, and asthma. These silent struggles had quietly shaped her later years, unseen by most, but always evident in the strength and passion she brought to her performances. Number 7. David Lynch. David Lynch wasn't just a filmmaker, he was a dream weaver, a man who could make the ordinary feel sinister and the strange feel familiar. Born on January 20th, 1946, in Spokane, Washington, his imagination was shaped by something horrifying he witnessed at 8 years old: a naked, bloodied woman stumbling out of darkness. That vision never left him, and it echoed through every film he made, from Blue Velvet to Inland Empire, haunting audiences in ways they couldn't explain. His career was as unpredictable as his mind. In 1977, Eraserhead arrived, a black-and-white nightmare that baffled viewers and became a midnight cult classic. In 1986, Blue Velvet peeled back the sunlit facade of small-town America, revealing the darkness beneath. Then came Mulholland Drive in 2001, a puzzle of dreams and reality that critics still argue over. On television, Twin Peaks in 1990 shocked the world, a surreal blend of soap opera, murder, and the uncanny, returning in 2017 with all its eerie brilliance intact. But Lynch's genius came at a personal cost. The cigarette he picked up at 8 became a lifelong companion, eventually bringing emphysema that left him confined to his home. By 2024, he needed oxygen to work, and simple breaths became a struggle. On January 15, 2025, at the age of 78, Lynch's heart finally gave out, a casualty of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Dehydration was listed as a contributing factor. He died quietly at his daughter's home in Los Angeles, even as wildfires raged across the city. A hauntingly surreal backdrop to the passing of a man whose life had always blurred the line between reality and nightmare. David Lynch left the world a strange, unforgettable gift. Films that don't just entertain, but haunt, disturb, and linger. His death was silent, yet profoundly cinematic, a final scene only he could have imagined. Number 8. Wings Hauser.
My great friend, will you just leave me hanging out there, yeah?
Wings Hauser's life read like a Hollywood legend, raw, messy, and impossible to ignore. Born Gerald Dwight Hauser on December 12, 1947, in the very city where dreams are made, he seemed destined for the screen. But destiny didn't hand it to him on a silver platter. In the early 1970s, Hauser and his infant daughter, Bright, were homeless, surviving in an empty garage. He played folk songs on the streets just to scrape by. Nights were freezing. Days were endless. Every coin he earned was a small victory, and every hardship etched an honesty into him that could never be faked on camera. That grit would become his signature, the pulse behind every unforgettable role. Everything changed in 1982. Vice Squad arrived, and Hauser exploded onto the screen as Ramrod, a psychotic pimp so unhinged that audiences couldn't decide whether to look away or stare. He didn't just act, he inhabited the character, even writing and singing the film's theme song, Neon Slime, letting his art and his life collide. Off-screen, life continued to be unpredictable. In the early 1990s, he dated Linda Blair, the Exorcist star, whose own life was a tangle of fame and scandal. Hauser's career swayed between critically acclaimed films like A Soldier's Story and cult hits that earned him a strange reputation. The biggest star you've never heard of. Illness eventually caught up. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease turned breathing into a daily battle. Oxygen tanks became part of his routine, yet his defiance never faded. On March 15, 2025, Wings Hauser passed away in Santa Monica at 77. He left behind his wife, Callie Lily Hauser, and his son Cole Hauser of Yellowstone fame. A family and a legacy forged in struggle, defiance, and a life lived entirely on his own terms. Number 9. Anne Burrell.
All right, hi, I'm Chef Anne Burrell, and I'm continuing my week of...
Anne Burrell was impossible to ignore. With her wild platinum hair and larger-than-life personality, she became one of Food Network's most recognizable stars. Born to command a kitchen, she first appeared on television in 2005 as a sous chef on Iron Chef America, alongside Mario Batali. Just 3 years later, she was hosting her own show, Secrets of a Restaurant Chef, which ran for 9 seasons. From 2010 to 2024, she became the fierce guide on worst cooks in America, leading home cooks through 27 seasons of chaos, disasters, and rare triumphs. Millions admired her sharp wit and uncompromising tough love style. But off-camera, Burrell's life was far more complicated. In 2009, former employees accused her of verbally abusing female staff with cruel insults, words like slutty, saggy, and stupid dumb whore. Her comments reportedly targeted only women, often making crude remarks about their bodies and personal lives. Later, when her restaurant Phil and Anne's Good Time Lounge was closing, reports suggested she treated her business partner, Phil Casatelli, coldly, despite his pouring his life savings into the venture. On the morning of June 17, 2025, her life ended tragically. Around 7:50 a.m., she was found unconscious in the shower of her Brooklyn apartment. Nearby, roughly 100 pills hinted at the desperation behind the final act. The medical examiner confirmed suicide, revealing a dangerous combination in her system: antihistamines, diphenhydramine and cetirizine, alcohol, and amphetamines. She was only 55. Anne left behind her husband, Stuart Claxton, whom she had married in October 2021, and his son, Javier. Her death was a stark reminder that even the brightest, boldest personalities can carry unseen struggles, and that fame and firepower in the spotlight often mask deep personal pain. Number 10. George Wendt.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Are you done for the year filming your show?
Yeah, we finished a few weeks ago.
How did it go?
George Robert Wendt passed away quietly on May 20th, 2025, at the age of 76. He died in his sleep at his home in Studio City, far from the laughter-filled sets where millions once recognized his face and voice. The news traveled, but the reaction was oddly muted for a man whose name alone once made the country shout, "Norm," without thinking. Behind the peaceful end lay a slow, relentless decline. a body quietly surrendering after years of struggle. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest. Yet it was only the final note in a long symphony of medical battles: congestive heart failure, coronary artery disease, hypertension, end-stage renal disease, and dangerously high cholesterol. For years, his body had been at war, losing bit by bit while the public still imagined him perched on a bar stool, cracking jokes. To millions, George Wendt was Norm Peterson from Cheers. Every entrance, every sarcastic line, every sly smile made the audience laugh as if they were sitting right in that Boston bar. Between 1984 and 1989, he earned 6 consecutive Emmy nominations. He appeared in all 275 episodes of the show's 11-season run, one of only 3 cast members to do so. Cheers became a television phenomenon, racking up 117 Emmy nominations and 28 wins. When the final episode aired in 1993, more than 80 million people tuned in. Yet the magic of Cheers didn't guarantee a smooth path forward. Life after the barstool was uneven. His own sitcom, The George Wendt Show, was canceled after just 1 month in 1995. Other projects came and went, never capturing the same spark. The fame lingered, but the momentum had slipped away, leaving a man whose greatest triumphs existed in the memories of millions. George Wendt's passing was quiet, but his legacy echoes loudly, a reminder of laughter, timing, and the warmth of a character who became more than just a role. Norm Peterson lives on in every living room that ever welcomed him. Hollywood's bright lights often hide the shadows. From Ozzy Osbourne's roaring final concerts to Anne Burrell's silent struggle behind platinum hair, these lives remind us that fame is never the full story. We cheered with George Wendt at the bar, marveled at Val Kilmer's fearless performances, and were haunted by David Lynch's visions. We witnessed Lonnie Anderson's glamour and trials, Gene Hackman's quiet heartbreak, Leslie Charleson's relentless dedication, Richard Chamberlain's hidden truths, and Wings Hauser's defiant rise from the streets to the screen. Each life was extraordinary, yet each carried its own battles: illness, loss, secrecy, and pain that the cameras never captured. Their deaths in 2025 were more than headlines. They were endings that echoed the complexities of a life lived under scrutiny, expectation, and sometimes isolation. As the curtains fall on these stories, we are reminded that behind every familiar face is a human being with dreams, fears, victories, and tragedies. The applause fades, the lights dim, but their legacies remain etched forever in the memories of the world they touched. Hollywood may have lost these icons quietly, but through their stories, they continue to speak, inspire, and haunt us. Proof that even in death, their impact is unforgettable.